This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Hey guys, here's a computer simulation of the radiation coming across the Pacific from Fukushima, Japan. Just sharing, I just ran across this today.
We want to emphasize that our approach is restricted to the physical spreading and does not account for possible biological effects, for example adhesion of isotopes to sinking organic matter. Neither does our model assimilate any ocean data, therefore we do not account for the actual state of the local currents at the time of the release. However, the initial state turned out to be of minor importance for the tracer spreading after 2 to 3 years. The following animation shows the spreading of our dye at the ocean surface. The color represents the concentration of the tracer relative to the initial concentration in the coastal area of Fukushima at the end of the injection period. The tracer invades the highly energetic Kuroshio regime within the first weeks after the release and starts spreading meridionally due to the eddies dominating the flow field in this area. After 1 year, maximum concentrations are diluted by 2 orders of magnitude and already cross the dateline, further heading east. The southern edge of the tracer cloud reaches the Hawaiian Islands after about 2 years, while the northern edge has begun to enter the Bering Sea. Meanwhile, concentrations near Japan have been dropping significantly due to replacement by less contaminated waters through the Kuroshio, separating the main cloud into a northern and a southern part. After 4 years, the maximum concentration has dropped by 3 orders of magnitude, and the entire northern Pacific is filled with a certain amount of tracer. When the peak concentration reaches the North American coast after about 5 to 6 years, it has been diluted by 4 orders of magnitude. Concentration levels from now on tend to homogenize over the entire basin.
Hi, this is Carl McLean sitting in for Harry Tambuatko, and our guest today is Mr. Ed Guevara, who is a disaster resiliency consultant and will talk to us about the damage of nuclear technology, a technology that we really do not comprehend properly yet. So Ed will tell us a little bit more about what happened at Fukushima and how we can prevent things from happening like that in the future. Ed.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Carl, for having me here. What you saw on the image was the simulation, computer image of how the radiation being spilled out of the Fukushima. That was 6 years ago.
Yes.
How it was spreading all over the Pacific Ocean. That was in 10 years cycle. It was a bit fast, but it was more or less to have an idea how radiation could travel all the way from Fukushima and first went towards north of Canada, Alaska, and then all the way back. Because in the Pacific, there are 4 gyros.
Yes.
These are water currents,
Yes,
that
yes.
goes from Japan, and it went all the way from the west coast and down, and there's another gyro from the below Chile, and it has a tendency to go back towards Australia, Philippines, where the coral triangles are located, and eventually back to Japan.
The problem is that most people have no idea what damage it has caused. And my view is that we don't really know how to manage any nuclear type of disaster and what effects it has, not just on us on Earth or on land, but also in the seas. Because the most toxicity was found in February 2017 this year, which is
Yeah.
over 5 years after the disaster, and I guess can still grow. Is that right? Ed?
Yes, correct. Actually, when we talk about Fukushima
Yes.
Daiichi nuclear disaster, it's a very controversial, highly a lot of information are kept from the major medias.
Yes.
So there's a cover up, there's a lot of underplayed, and this is the reason why I'm here. Practically is to let the public know what is this happened really in the Fukushima during that heavy earthquake 9.1 that hit that power plant station.
What makes people want to build with nuclear technology when we don't know how to manage it in an earthquake environment, in an area where you have earthquakes like Japan?
Right.
Why would they do that?
Why would we do that? Because going back to the pre-industrial revolution, they discovered coal
Yes.
to run our engines and
Yep,
the
yep.
electricity, but it created a lot of pollution. So they discovered another source of energy, which is the oil.
Right.
So they were able to extract petroleum to run our cars, and even much easier than less dirty, but they still kept the coal, you know.
Right.
And so that was an issue of air pollution at the time. And so they came up again with another one. They said, hey, this one does not pollute. It's clean, it's efficient, it's safe, and it's like highly economical. And that was the nuclear.
But don't you believe it's not just, you see, countries like France for many years have built most of their energy supply on nuclear technology.
Yeah.
China had moved that way, especially there's a plant near Hong Kong, which I mentioned to you earlier.
Right.
That is, if that ever anything happened to that, God help Hong Kong. Then you got Japan, then we almost touched on it with Bataan, but we didn't.
Yes.
And my guess is we won't, but I don't know. Maybe you know more than I do about this, Ed.
Well, exactly. What I was trying to say is that from the nuclear, it was a very nice package, you know. So everybody believed it, and of course, they got to make a lot of money on that. But because the advantage of nuclear power is it's from uranium and plutonium. These are you can extract energy using fission. Actually, fission is splitting the atoms, by adding proton, and they keep moving, and that could last for thousands of years. And you know, a nuclear power the size of a baseball could power up a nuclear submarine for 2 years.
Right.
So it's smaller, easy to transport, and it's actually more efficient than the 1 kilo of uranium. It's like 1,500 tons of coal. So and they claim it doesn't have carbon dioxide. There is actually, it's not zero. There is, but a little bit neglectable.
Is the cost substantially lower than coal?
Wow. When we talk about cost, it was presented, it was lower, and they said it's cheaper, but if you add, this they didn't mention, the waste of the nuclear, it's by far very expensive.
How do they process? I mean, you know, with coal we have all the dirt in the air, which we're used to, and pollution from cars, from petrol and diesel. How do they process nuclear waste? How is that actually? How do you successfully process nuclear waste without it affecting the planet?
Okay, I wish you could show how a Fukushima power plant looks like, and you will see a reactor there. First of all, that's where you are. There's the Fukushima power plant, and you have actually 6, and the 4 of them were exploded because this the rod, they call it has to be kept cold with water, fresh water.
Yes.
No, because it once it start to move and start to generate energy, it will not stop for thousands of years. It takes very long time. So actually 547 days it will keep on running non-stop. So they have to replenish a new rod because it's the nuclear rod. And this has to be maintained with water at an easy, because once it explodes, it will melt down by itself. And when it melts down, it will pierce the flooring of the nuclear plant down to the underground.
Right.
And even further, that's why this story of the 3 Mile Island was about China syndrome. They were afraid that this the meltdown will end up from America. It will end up in China because it's the antipode. So there was a film about it, the 3 Mile Island story.
Yeah.
So what happened in Fukushima, once that there was a, well, three exploded and they had a meltdown. So when it reaches the core of the Earth, there is a water layer there. So again, it hits the water, that will create a lot of water vapor, radiated water. This is the nuclear fallout.
Yes, yes.
And it actually did surround the entire planet during the time, and nobody, of course, was mentioning it. That's why you have a lot of birds that are being destroyed.
Yes.
And now, to keep that from, to cool it down, they couldn't access fresh water. So they were accessing seawater. And of course, it's corrosive more to the structure of the nuclear plant.
Yes.
Fukushima disaster was really a lot of human error.
So we didn't actually plan, but it wasn't actually planned early on when they implemented the plants. They had no what-if scenarios regarding disasters. There was no real disaster planning done.
Well,
Is
there's
that
an
correct?
engineering error, first of all.
Okay.
In the area where they built this nuclear power station in Daiichi, the original surface was 25 meters below. They went down lower because they want to assure the structure of the power plant from the earthquake. But they had undermined the tsunami. So, and in fact, they had created a seawall which was only meant to break the sea up to 30 feet. It was 50 feet when it happened. So there was a
over the
20
wall.
feet, went into the wall. That was the first
Error.
no, on the engineering aspect. And the second error was they put their generators on the basement. So when the tsunami came in, it was all flooded. And you cannot, the thing with nuclear power is you cannot stop the rod to be cooled down because it will melt everything.
Why didn't they build it further inland?
Wow, this is another question because exactly, well, in Chernobyl, it was inland, but they have a good source of water.
Yes, they had, yes.
Yeah, that would have been much smarter, you know, because, again, another question of common sense, if you can call it. If this is a danger aspect of the nuclear energy, you should put it nowhere it could be hurt.
Yeah.
Like in, okay, you can use a source of water,
Yeah.
but not directly into the sea. And most of the nuclear plants are based on this, on the seaside.
The one in China is on the sea. I
On the
know
sea,
that,
in France, everywhere.
On
But
the
they
sea,
have to have water. Anyway, if it even was built close to a river,
Yes,
that river will still go into the sea.
of course.
But it's much easier probably to block the river from spreading on the sea. Well, in the case of the Fukushima right now, they are only saying is that 300 tons of water containing cesium-137, which is highly toxic, are being poured every day into the ocean. That was since May. That was since March 11, 2011.
11, sorry,
It's almost 6 years now.
Yeah.
So our Pacific Ocean is dying. They were saying that 1/3 already had been polluted, contaminated, and actually we have pictures of the marine life, the fishes that have been killed. You can see this, how much of these fishes, and even dolphins and whales, you know, the Earth has already have a problem of finding food, and yet these are food you cannot even eat anymore.
Is there anything that can be done to rectify the situation?
Well, I will have to mention that at the end. Of course, there is a solution.
Yes.
That's probably our finale,
Okay.
because I would like the people to understand exactly what is a nuclear technology, because it's not very clear, especially for a Filipino, now that they are trying to revive the Bataan nuclear plant, and they were even planning to open up one in Pangasinan. So I would like to really make it clear that this is a technology, it's not for human beings, and it's not meant for the surface of the planet, because the uranium and plutonium are really belongs under the ground.
But there's so many new energy technologies around.
On top of it, yeah.
So we don't really need to go the way of plutonium
No, we
or
don't need
nuclear.
it. We don't
We
need
can go with solar, we can go with wave, we can go with currents, we can go with tidal, we can go with wind. There's so many different types of technologies which are substantially safer.
They're renewables, they're
renewables,
clean.
but they are more. The problem that we have with renewables today is the startup costs are high. Sometimes, like the windmills are expensive to build. So you have to look at it over a long period of time.
So with nuclear, nuclear has a
same?
very huge startup, and they will not tell you the exact cost of it. Like in Bataan, if you were told, they were said it's going to cost them 500 million. It's ended up 2.5 billion
Yes.
at the end, and you cannot go back with it. Well, let's go back to the Fukushima, because the problem with Fukushima, first they had an engineering error, and then the common sense of putting the generators,
Yes.
backup generators, on the basement. Plus, when that happened, they didn't even have a light. In the house we have a backup computer,
Yes, yes,
generator.
yes.
When that happened, they didn't have a light, and they couldn't even monitor the building up of the pressure. So they were able to gather actually some car batteries, put them together, just to be able to monitor.
Yes.
So there's an error of the error of proper training when it comes to disaster. They were only trained to monitor, but when it comes to disaster, they really panicked.
So how many other nuclear power stations are there in Japan,
Oh.
for example?
Before that Fukushima, there were about 54. I think 2 are
Wow.
decommissioned, but in the entire planet, we
Yes.
have 540, and
So-
more are to come.
So 10% were in Japan of that 540.
Yeah,
How about, which France has a lot? What percentage is in France?
they have more, I think, from Japan.
Yes.
And the exact model of Fukushima is the same model they're
As in
using in
France.
France. Yes,
Right.
that's why when that happened, the French nuclear specialists went to Japan to give them a hand.
Yes.
Because exactly, hey, this is the same model we have. So
Yeah.
how are you going to handle it? How do you learn from it? But this is the problem with the TEPCO. At the time when they had in trouble, it's a bit the Japanese culture. They didn't want to ask any help from anybody.
The problem you have in Japan in particular, if you're on the coast and you're in a geoseismic unstable area, which
Yes,
Japan is,
yes.
because of the fault
Ring of
lines,
fire, yeah.
the ring of fire, the fault line, you should not really normally even think of building anything with that
That's
danger.
in the first place, exactly.
first
This is
place.
another fault. What I'm saying, you cannot even build a nuclear power station right on the fault line, which they
Yeah,
did in
which they
Bataan,
did, yeah.
which they did in so many other areas.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. What I'm trying to say, we lack common sense when we are trying to put something so dangerous. It could create the whole. It could cause the whole global disaster.
Yes.
And yet, we are not trained enough people or a backup or an override
Yeah.
of all the things. For example, what happened that day when there's no, imagine you are a power station and you don't have a power. Can you imagine? So they use flashlight
Yeah,
and car
yeah.
batteries.
That's so
And
crazy.
then there's another error of communicating between Tokyo, the TEPCO office,
Yes.
and the Fukushima Daiichi,
Yeah.
and another one which is just below it is another one. They're about another. They had the same problem,
Yeah.
and the minister of Japan, they said our pressure is building up and we have to release the pressure. And of course, the minister said, no, if you release the radioactive particles in the atmosphere, the whole world will be hitting us. Yeah.
We'll have a break now, and
All right.
after the break, we'll continue and talk about how to best resolve this issue and what alternative energy sources are available for us to get rid of nuclear power.
Okay.
Okay? Thank
Thank
you.
you.